So you'd think that Lost Planet 2 would be a big step up from the first Lost Planet. It's got 4-player co-op, a full suite of multiplayer options, and huge monsters to fight. It's also a really great-looking, great-sounding third-person shooter. Clearly a lot of effort went into the game's presentation. It's amazing then that so much has gone wrong. Not only does Lost Planet 2 not fix the problems of the first game, it makes them much, much worse. The artificial intelligence is some of the worst you've seen in a shooter. The constant knockbacks and all sorts of basic design flaws constantly ruin the fun. And the mission design is often abysmal. That includes a train level that may very well go down as one of the worst sequences in video game history. That doesn't mean Lost Planet 2 doesn't have some wonderful qualities. The multiplayer isn't special, but it can be really enjoyable. There's lots of environmental variety and a couple of cool fights against the freaky alien Acrid. This is an incredibly full-featured shooter, but all those features go to waste in a game loaded with basic problems. Let's get this out of the way first. If you want to play Lost Planet 2's campaign on your own, you should just leave it right there on the shelf. This is one of the most exasperating single-player experiences in some time. The game starts out well enough, if a bit linear and disjointed, with a series of extremely short chapters. This is clearly an arcade shooter, even giving you a ready, set, go countdown at the start of each level. The story is even more irrelevant now than before, which is too bad because the cutscenes are of incredibly high quality. They just don't have much of a tale to tell. But after the first couple of decent episodes, things take a turn for the worst. Once you get to a level featuring 2 trains speeding along side by side, you might be ready to destroy your controller and curse Capcom for the awful level design. After a series of frustrating knockbacks constantly throwing you off the train, you get to one of the worst sequences you've ever seen in any game. The mission doesn't tell you what you need to do and the AI just stands around doing nothing. Once you figure out what you're supposed to be doing, the sequence isn't fun, but it's at least playable if you have some co-op buddies along for the ride. On your own, the level is essentially broken. The other missions are better, though not really high in quality. You do get a chance at least to fight against some of those awesome giant Acrid. They tower above you and are legitimately scary to encounter. The best moments of the game have you fighting these beasts along with smaller swarms of enemies, but these battles are frequently more frustrating than fun. Lost Planet 2 is big on knockback attacks and overly long animations. One swipe of a claw or hit of a rocket often takes away all but a sliver of health and knocks you back. It takes a short while to recover, assuming you don't get knocked into some insta-death water off a moving vehicle or something like that. The water deaths are particularly stupid, since at other times going under the water is absolutely fine. Fortunately, there are some high points, such as a few levels that at least give you room to maneuver and remind you why you really liked the original Lost Planet. After all, that game had some of these same problems, but not nearly to this frustrating extent. However, it's great that there is so much variety here. Indoor and outdoor levels, set-piece missions underwater and on speeders, and other moments really had a lot of potential. They just never get a chance to shine. The friendly AI is absolutely awful, often running in place against doors or just standing there doing nothing at all. Obviously, adding a buddy or 3 makes things a lot better, but then you'll notice how bad the enemy AI really is. It's not uncommon just to have an enemy stand there looking right at you and do nothing at all. Capcom's idea of challenge isn't challenge, it's just cheapness. Acrid stun you for a few moments, shot grenades and shotguns paralyze you for far too long, snipers and turrets pummel you. Not to mention that if you get shot in the middle of an action, such as healing yourself or throwing a grenade, the action will be interrupted. All of these things work together to make large portions of Lost Planet 2 the opposite of fun. And that's too bad because it's absolutely gorgeous, both technically and artistically. It's a strong and cohesive look complemented by great sound effects and a dramatic musical score. If you're contemplating a purchase and aren't sure which version to grab, the Xbox 360 gets a slight edge here. The PlayStation 3 version's frame rate is a bit hitchy, things look a little bit more aliased, and the game will frequently pause for a split second out of the blue. Clearly the campaign is based around co-op, but even with buddies the game could be super frustrating. You have limited respawns shared amongst the team, though if you play on your own, you get them all to yourself. This would be fine if skill was involved, but most deaths have nothing to do with your skill and everything to do with poor design philosophy. Competitive multiplayer fares better at least. Giant mechs battle each other, the maps are good, and the modes are typical but varied. Fugitive, where a team of fugitives must avoid capture from hunters, is the most interesting, but you've got more basic standbys, including a 2-flag capture the flag variant called Acrid Egg Battle. The basic mechanical problems still cause trouble here. For example, it's frustrating not to be able to just toss a grenade if someone's shooting at you. There's a reason other shooters don't do that after all, because it isn't fun. On the other hand, you can take part in factional battles in which different sides compete for map control, sort of like in Chrome Hounds or End War. There's also a system of unlocks where you spend points you earn from every mode on the ability to activate the turn of a slot machine. It's an interesting idea, and you can gain access to new weapons and passive abilities there, but more often you get a title or an emote, so now you can run around with the phrase "looking for love" floating over your head. And compared to the high-quality shooters that offer persistent upgrades, Lost Planet 2's are a bit of a letdown. Well, you do have to give it credit for trying. A lot of care went into making Lost Planet 2 a fully featured, gorgeous game that on paper should be the real deal, the shooter that does everything. But none of those features mean much if the core game isn't fun to play. Lost Planet 2 is absolutely full of inexplicable design choices that make it not fun. On top of the main issues, there are other odd things. If you want to play with a buddy, your buddy needs to have played up to that point already. The grappling hook is cool, but the rules regarding when and when you can't use it are maddeningly inconsistent. The game doesn't communicate well, making you flounder around too often trying to figure out what you should be doing. Lost Planet 2 does have a few great qualities, but with so many awesome games out there, playing this one just doesn't make any sense.